Well, awesome. I want to make sure and give you enough time. Jeff, do you want to come on up? I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Okay.
This is a part 2. So if you want, you didn't get the whole enchilada, we have the recording of the part 1 on our YouTube site. So you can just go onto YouTube and type in Ginger Marcus. And you'll find it. There's only one of me. Marcus is Marphis. If you didn't get one of my cards, they're in the back. But yeah, just go to my YouTube site. We have all of our investor recordings on there. For some reason, there was one that we didn't get recorded, but you didn't miss anything. That's all right. Oh, it wasn't yours. Oh, is that one mine? So Jeff, tell us something about yourself.
I'm here. No. Jeff Ogan, I'm a real estate investor. I've been doing this for about 20 plus years. I started, like a lot of the people here, I started buying properties and fixing and flipping and literally moved into the very first one I bought and lived on low mattresses for about a month when we first got it and started fixing it up and fixed it up, sold it, fixed it up, sold it, bought, stayed in one, eventually got to the one where we were gonna, and then started buying them so that I wasn't actually moving into them. And did about 50, 60 in Southern California over the years, did really well with those. Bought a number of them at auctions in different places like that. So, but the fix and flip game is you're always looking for the next deal, right? You're always looking for that one and you're always looking for your margins. That the formula basically that I was working off of was 70% off the ARV minus repair costs, right? And that was kind of the formula that I kind of stuck to because that was where you made it. But I also knew long-term that wasn't going to help me get where I wanted to be, which was independent sources of income. So I started buying rental properties, some in Southern California, and then I started buying them out of state because the ones in California just couldn't cash flow. Go figure. So bought them in Arizona, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, a whole bunch of places. Basically the long-term plan was to own 50 houses in every single state, have an RV, and if one became available, I'd go live there for a little while. So did a lot of that, went through divorce, gave all the houses to the attorneys because that was the best investment plan I had ever came across. And then I had to rebuild after going through the divorce with my ex and stuff like that. So, you know, it's actually better to put your attorney's kids through college than your own. So anyways, that's where I ended up. And then I started getting into self-storage a little bit more here.
Oh.
Is that? Anyway, and so still had some investment properties. I had rebuilt, bought investment properties in Southern California because it was during the Great Recession of 08, so it was still actually making a lot of sense of cash flow. So I had properties in Inland Empire, which is Hemet, Sun City, stuff like that. And then the idea was own those things and then roll them into something long term. Looked at multifamily and did some analysis on those. You know, I'm not a big property management guy because I don't necessarily like having to deal with it because there's a lot of times that you get weird phone calls and stuff like that. So making a partnership with a good property management company is always a good thing. And if they're out of state, it's that much more difficult to manage. So got into that and then rolled these things into self-storage where I helped a partner of mine finance 3 or 4 different self-storage in Panama City. And I watched him do extremely well. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's the direction to go. So then helping finance and analyze them before and then started buying them. So we've got one we just closed in Clarksville. You're going to see a lot of that if I can actually this thing to work. It should be one. Got it. There we go. Evaluating it. All right. So as we go along, if you guys have questions, by all means, just throw them out and I'll babble about it, hopefully, intelligently for a little while. If that's fine. So basically, when you're evaluating self-storage, like I said, this is the second part. This is gonna be more of a case study. So we're gonna actually do a little bit of analyzing and taking apart self-storage and what it is that I really look at. And if we have enough time, I don't know that we will, I'm gonna pull up a couple that I've actually got emailed from brokers within literally last week or so that I've been kind of pulling apart. But this one is one that we've actually bought and closed on. So you can see that it's a little bit more in detail. And what are the, go, no go decisions as far as when you first start analyzing them. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But basically, the premise is know your market, know your competition, know who your customers are, know your business plan, and then know your exit. Where are you really gonna go with all this? So, first one is really knowing your market. That's talking about the demand. Because my premise has always been, it's not supply and demand, it starts with demand and then it goes to supply. Because if you know what your demand is, then you can see if it's oversupplied or undersupplied market.
Do you have kind of like maybe 3 or 4 kind of go, no go markers that you kind of use?
Yes.
To evaluate a deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll bring them up as I go along. One of my no-go on the markets is I won't buy anything below probably about 20,000 in population. I don't like the smaller deals. The only way I would go into the smaller markets is if you're getting such a phenomenal deal. You need to buy those on cash flows. You can't, I don't think you can buy them because you're not going to see the appreciation, you're not going to see the growth, you're not going to see a lot of the things. So 20,000 is about my minimum as far as the population is concerned. So that's one of the first ones. That's why the know your market. What's the population? And you get a lot of cities in back east that literally going from one city to the next, 11,000, 20,000, 10,000, stuff like
Are
that.
you
So
talking about buying existing or building?
this one's almost all is on buying and value add and taking it apart as far as a value add buy. In development, I have a whole analysis on development, but that's a different creature altogether. So we're not going to touch on development at all. That's in the prior one. I talked a little bit about that. So if you go back and watch that one, there's a lot of development analysis that I did. So where are we at? All right. First off, when you're looking really at your market, you want to define your market for that facility that you're looking at. And great question. This is not for development. This is a facility that's already been bought or it's already up and running. And it may be a value add. And specifically, that's what I'm looking for right now. For what we're looking to do is value add property. So what we want to really do is we want to be able to define your market. It's typically within about 3 miles to 7 miles as far as the population is concerned, because most people are not willing to drive 10 miles or greater to go to their self-storage unit unless they're moving or they're going to be. So it's usually short term when they're going to be doing that, if they're going to be going there. If they rent a unit because I'm moving to this section of town, so I'm going to move my property, or I moved out because going through divorce, had to rent a unit and it's on the other side of town until I can get it, and then I'm going to get rid of it. So the longer term rentals and stuff like that. So you really want to know what the population in your market is as far as that. So 3 to 7, 10 miles, you're going to see some analysis later on for the longer ones. There we go. All right. So great places to get basically your market data: Google Maps, Wikipedia, city data is one. Data census government. That's the government census data. And we're going to see some of those sites as we go through all this, right? Some of the paid for sites, you'll see some of the data from the paid for sites, but obviously they're paid for. You gotta do a subscription, either a monthly or an annual subscription. Site to do business, which is ESRI, which is down in Redlands, California. Phenomenal data, but they also charge you for it. So, so site to do business is a good one, and then Sparefoot, which is also another subscription. You can go in there and get a lot of information on the markets and on the specific properties, but you want to be able to you go that, so if you wanna take pictures of that. I'm gonna move this up here. I think we'll do that. There we go. There we go, yeah. Okay. All right, so. The one that we're gonna be looking at today is Clarksville, right up here, it's on the top left, right up here, it's actually a major MSA is Nashville. And so that's where you would fly into to be able to go take a look at the property. It's right on the border and between there and Kentucky. And right above that is Fort Worth Sherwin. So one of the first things I always do is I look for on Google Maps, where is the property actually located? You know, and what's the major airport? Because obviously one of the things that I originally looked at when doing an analysis was I wanted a direct flight from Reno. Well, Reno, it's really limited because they only do halfway across the country. So Houston, Austin, Fort Worth, Utah, and that limits my ability to do it. So we expanded that out a little bit so that now it's going to be about a 1-day trip to get there if I have to go out there to the property. So 1 day I travel there and 1 day I travel back. That's something that like I said, one of the original decisions was I wanted to go and not have to make a half-day trip there if I could do it. Because from here, Reno direct to Austin, it's about a 3-hour flight, 2.5, 3-hour flight. So you can do it in the morning, it's not that bad. But look at Google Maps. You want to go in there and look at the county Wikipedia and stuff like that, pull it up, take a look at this the Google thing, because there's this tremendous amount of information out there that you can actually extract from, right? You can also go and take a look at the city data. We're not going to dig into that right now, but you find the cities and the locations for the individual counties and cities and look at that because they have a ton of information that they're always willing to share with you. All right. Then you take a look at the Wikipedia page. Basically, you want to just pull it apart a little bit, read and see what's the population. The whole idea of this one is what's the population that I'm looking at in that particular market. And then we're gonna dig down deeper into that later. So the go no go decision, I've had people send me OMs offering memorandums and packages on deals. And the first thing I look at is I had one that was in Texas in this little small town that was like 11,000. That's gonna have more issues. It's gonna be harder to get to as far as travel time and management as well as financing, because a lot of lenders are not gonna necessarily want to lend on something like that. So you can pick it up for the right price, it might be worth it, but it's better be there. All right. And then what you want to do is you want to define your market once again, right? So what's the city of Clarksville, right? Because that's the outline of the city of Clarksville for the whole thing. Because then once you start pulling demographic information out of the sources, that's what it's going to be really based on. All right. So this is city data website. You can actually go there. It's free. They actually have some really good stuff. You can actually dig down really deep into it because it gives you weather. It gives you breakout of population data. It gives you all kinds of information. It gives you also the weather for the year. So one of the things that I look at is what's the population, right? Breakout of males to females, right? What are the zip codes? Because that's going to come up later as far as if you're going to do the demographic data. And then what's the estimated value on income for the household. Tennessee, it's 56,000. That's probably skewed up a little bit because of the Nashville. Nashville skews it up a little bit, but in Clarksville, the average annual housing income is 51,000. Right, so not bad, not horrible, but not too bad. But at the same time, and what you want to do is you want to look at what's the median value of their house values, right? So Tennessee, it's 191,000. That's obviously skewed up because I've been to some of the properties in Tennessee where they're selling over $1 million in homes down in Franklin, Spring Hill, stuff like that. South of the whole area down south of Nashville right now is just booming. It's going off the chart as far as that. And the entry point on the houses in some of those areas over $1 million. So I look at that too. Clarksville is 58,000. Not necessarily a bad thing per se, but it is lower than all of Nashville.
Could you expand a little more on why you look at the male female, and then again, like, how does the median house, how does that affect, like, whether it's I mean, if it were higher, does that make it better for?
In some of the areas that I've looked at, if you look at, and their income is significantly lower, then it's a different demographic.
Oh.
It's a different, it's, what do they do for a living?
Oh.
Are they blue collar? Are they professional? Are they college educated? Stuff like, so you start digging deeper into that.
Different demographics make better, investment. opportunities.
Not necessarily because of the fact that, in some areas, yes, in some areas, no, but it relates back to who your customers are. And the product that you're gonna offer. So I'll give you a great example, Winnemucca. Winnemucca out here, right? That area out there, high income. A lot of people make over 100,000 because they all work in the mines. They also own huge properties and they also have 3-bedroom houses and 5 acres and stuff like that. But there's a lot of demand out there because why? They make good money. They also buy a lot of stuff. And they keep it. And they need a place to store it. They don't necessarily want to store it on their property or in their garages and stuff. So there's actually a lot of high demand out in Winnemucca for all kinds of storage out there because of the fact that it's larger storage units that they're gonna want as opposed to smaller storage units. So that's as you start digging down. All right. Thought this quickly would work. I thought you were gonna, you may expect it to work. All right. Once again, this is the data from the Department of Government. This is the census data. So you can see the area that it's outlined. So when you start pulling the information from the census, then you want to know where their area is fine. Because the way they define areas is zip codes. And the way they define areas is not always the same thing. So you can have an area, one area that's, you know, high end, very high end tapestry and making really good money right next to another one, and they just lump them together. So that's one of the things is that they'll skew it in different areas. So what you can do is you can actually pull it out, and then like I said, on the data census, you can see it 166,000. That's for that whole area. That's the city of. Now, they don't necessarily go by cities either. They have their own little way of doing it. Like I said, it's typically zip codes that they're doing. So, and then what you do is you can start digging down in the area. All right. The other one, know your competition. Who are the people in the area that you're actually going to be competing against as far as the market is concerned, right? So one of the things is I'm primarily focused on value add. So these are going to be the C-class buildings. These are not the value add. You're not going to buy a value add that's an A-class building because the institutional investors are going to own it. And they're going to be 40, 50,000 square feet of space. So I'm looking for 5 to 40,000 square feet of that square footage, and then what's going to be going on. Typically, it's going to be a single owner who's owned it for a number of years and hasn't raised rents and doesn't like necessarily the management of it, who manages it themselves, because that's where the real opportunities for value add is coming from. So you want to know a lot about this, the different types of it, and then where are they really located? Because sometimes they're not necessarily the best locations. I've seen a number of them. Oh, I see you there, sir. The location is going to be a little bit less than because of the fact that it may not be on the major road, it may be on the back side of the road or the off road. And so that if that will affect your income on it, because if the people can't find it, right? Because a lot of times when we're driving up and down the freeway, and they've got these nice looking, they look like hotels now, right? Right off the freeway. Yes, sir.
Yes, what would be the typical upgrades on a property like that?
Great question. I'm gonna get there a little bit later. That's a whole section on its own. I'm trying to get, we're gonna, this is a very broad overview, and then we're gonna dig down deep once I get into the analysis of this.
Now, when you're talking about, obviously, one of the biggest things of value add is management, because they're
Yep.
bringing the most money. Do you run your own management company or do
Yes.
you have a company?
Yeah, we have our own management company. We have our own, we don't have the software. We license out the software from a couple of different licensing places, and everything's set up is to be remote.
So what do you have involved on site?
We have actually boots on the ground, and we hire typically a part-time guy. So we just literally started today. Today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, on one of our facilities. And here's a great insight. What you want to do is you want to get somebody part-time that's typically going to be older, retired guy who's from the military, who's got mechanical skills and just looking for beer money. Those are phenomenal guys. I love those guys. Because of the fact that a lot of times they want something to do, they're very mechanical, they're very good with taking care of stuff, and they're just looking for something to do and have extra time. So that's who we're kind of looking for. That's the profile that we look for when we're hiring boots on the ground. So we always hire somebody local that will go by and change locks, keep the place a little cleaned up, do whatever maintenance needs to be, change light bulbs, stuff like that.
And the rest of it is software, right?
Yeah, and then we have a call center and some other stuff. Yes, sir. Oh, I thought you had a question.
Oh, I was just volunteering.
Oh, okay. No, I would hire you, definitely. All right. So you want to measure the number of units that are within the facility that you're looking for, that you're looking to buy, right? How many number of units are there? Who are the owners? And then what's the total number of them? You want a per capita rate. Per capita is basically what's the square footage per population in that city. So what's the total square footage of rentable space in a self-storage unit? 7 is about the national average. So there's 7 square feet of space nationally for everybody in the United States right now. And that's about low. So if it's like below 4, 5, 6, that's really low. If you start getting up into between 7 and 10 or 11 square feet, then that's actually really high. So that's, you want to know that number, because that's going to affect your ability to lease. Now, in some major MSA areas, I've seen 15, 7 to 17 square feet that are out there right now, because of the fact that they can do it. They do like smaller units and stuff like that. So understanding what the demand is, right? All right, so in this particular facility, as you can see, there's a whole, you can see the prices. This is the data. This is actually from square foot. So you can actually see the number of units out there, and you can actually see what they're charging. Our units right about here. So $111 right there. That's partly because of the demographics, and I'll talk about that later. Here you see the 57, 79, 59, 79, and you can see all the prices on them. So that way you can actually kind of go, hey, if I put a facility here, I can get the higher values. Or $57, that might be a buy opportunity, depending on if it's an older facility. So you can take a look at it. All right. This is also some of the information from square foot. What you want to do is you can go on there. Now, a lot of times when you go on there, they list all the different sizes, and what they'll do is they'll list basically the major people, because it's a marketing opportunity to be able to lease up spaces. They charge you for that. So you can go on there and they give you relative numbers as to what rents for 5 by 10 or 10 by 10 or whatever. So you can get some relative numbers as far as that's concerned. All right. So know your competition once again, right? These are the ones that are within about a 3-mile radius of us. These are our real true competition on this particular property. So what you want to do is you want to shop them. Hey, I'm looking at renting a unit. How much is it per 10 by 10? How many you got available? How many, what's a 5 by 5, or what's your specials right now? What are you doing? Right? And then you can actually see it. So on this one here, this is the one that we just acquired, right? You can see the rates, $29, $40, $49, $65, $75, $85, right? All the way up to $117.
Those are existing.
These are all existing properties. I can give you the address. You can pull them up right now.
I'm in the
Yeah.
top one. That's, you bought it
Yeah.
at those rates?
Yep. Yeah, and that's why we're gonna get into it. That's why I'm using this one as an example, because we're gonna pull apart the income statement and balance sheet and do the projections on it. So on these ones, so they're 5 by 10s over here, or they're getting $97, right? 69. This was $100. On average, it's over here is $87. This guy's over here at $29. Is there an opportunity there? Sure there is, right? So you can go all the way out. You can see that average square foot price is about 95 cents to about $1.11-ish. I have it in the analysis, but I can't pull that up right now. So you can take a look at it, and what you do is you basically go, how much is it? What are my unit? What's my unit mix? What's their unit mix? What are they asking? What are you asking? Right? Knowing the competition. And these are direct competition, because all these facilities are within about a 3-mile radius from where we're at. So. All right, so one other stuff that you want to look at on other factors to consider is the market level of occupancy. Is the market at 90%? which right now in Reno, right now, it's running about 90-95% in the market. Right? And then there's some markets out there that are running about 70%, right? If it's 70%, why is that? We're gonna dig into that a little bit later. What's the problem? Is it a good site location, maybe that you can actually expand, or it's got good traffic, or something else? So you wanna take a look at those things. You know, is it acquisition? What is it? All right,
Like a value add question,
sure.
so like, you know how they're converting a lot of like, old shopping centers into storage unit?
Retail
Like,
center.
yeah,
Or like the Kmart's,
yeah,
yeah.
so why aren't they renting out parking lot spaces, like? is
Parking
there-
lots, because sometimes the parking lot is zoned differently.
Okay.
And they may not be able to allow it, like the one in Carson, I actually talked to the mayor about that. And the one in down in Carson is not zoned for, because they've had a lot of people that have approached and said, hey, we'd like to turn this into, you know, a self-storage unit. And they're like, well, it's not zoned for that. So you're gonna have to wait for the city plan. So that's coming up next year, so we may help influence that. So, but, and a lot of times with the parking, retail parking, based on the city, you have to have a certain amount of parking, right? Medical, you have to have a certain amount of parking that's available for every type of building, commercial building that you have. And if you don't have those types of parking, so if somebody comes by that wants to buy it, you know, who wants to do something with it, so.
Because
And
like,
then
it's
sometimes they're
25 to
actually-
$30 a month you can get like for one parking spot, like,
Why don't they use it as a place to park them?
no, like, park like work trucks or, fence lot.
RV and boat.
Huh?
Like RV.
RV boat, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I mean. that's
City
fine.
regulations, city may not be supportive of it.
Okay.
There's a variety of reasons. You know, is that necessarily a bad idea? No, it's not, but, you know.
Because I've
it's
seen
gotta
so
be-
many convert, so many shop, like old stores, Kmart's converted and like,
Right,
I see a empty parking lot, like. It would
Yeah.
make sense to fence it off and rent the parking spaces.
no, that's definitely a possibility, so you just have to talk with the cities to find out. Cause a lot of times they may have regulation. But if they've already let you convert the Kmart, you know. 30-40,000 square foot building is a lot different, but yeah. All right. Okay, so know your customers, right? Type of market data. All right, population characteristics, income, lifestyle. Right, what do they do? A lot of that stuff comes from your governmental agencies and stuff like that. Here are some really good sources that you guys can pull that information from. You know, US Census Bureau, it's all free. American Housing Survey, that, for if you're a home builder, you guys should look at that survey, because it shows you the number of homes in the area. And you can look at everything across the nation on that, what size houses and everything like that. Economic Census Data Bureau, Labor Statistics, all this different, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Louisiana. That's actually a really good site. We call it FRED because of the fact that it's economic data. So if you're not an economist, it might be a little bit overwhelming. Anyways, this is what it looks like for the American Housing Survey. What kind of houses are built, where, how old are they, right? So know your customers. This, once again, you need to know where your customers are coming from or where they're at. Where do they live, right? So right in the blue, right in the middle is that facility, right? And if you look at it, there's two different things there. This area is 5 minutes out drive time, right? The green here is a 10-minute drive. Blue is 15 minutes drive. But the circles here is 3 miles, 5 is 10 miles, yeah, 3 miles, 5 miles, and this is 10 miles all the way out. Because that's where we're, based on what we've seen in our analysis of our rent rolls, that's where we're getting most of our customers. We're not getting people from out. There was a facility I looked at down in Houston. It was right a little outside of by the water. Everybody that was renting there was not a local. Everybody was renting because what they were doing is they were parking their boats there, and they would drive into town, take their boats, and then they go put it on the water, and then they take it back and put it back there. So, you know, you want to look at that stuff. This is a tapestry as far as what you want to look at with the customers. What kind of a profile do they have? What kind of a customer are they? Are they younger family? Are they building our other assets? Are they older family? Maybe middle age where they've got a couple of kids, stuff like that. You're looking for somebody that actually has stuff they want to store, right? So the biggest key factor here, right? You need a home value. This is all within a 10 mile. Yeah, 10 mile of the radius. The key ones that you want to look at, I think, Is it a growing area or is it a declining area? So that's a go, no-go decision a lot of times. Is the area increasing in population, increasing in pop thing, or is it declining? So that's one of the things that I really look at, is to be able to do that. You know, what's the age population, how many businesses and stuff like that. This one's more along the lines of also, you know, a customer profile, right? So the pink areas right there is family landscapes. These are mainly families that are living there, right? These are also, they're called cozy comfortable. These are people that are, you know, older, maybe don't have kids, but they actually wanted some land, so they may have a 5 or a 10 acre house lot, stuff like that. And they typically have a little bit more money and stuff like that. So that's one of the stuff that you want to know. So you really want to know who your customers are and what they're willing to pay. All right. Know your business plan. What's the business plan? All right, we're gonna talk about that. But so with commercial properties or investment properties, it's always really about that income, net operating income divided by your cap rate to create the value. Now, you can also turn the formulas on the side where you can go, okay, the value should be this if I'm looking for this kind of cap rate. But that formula is the same thing that you guys can use for your individual houses and stuff like that as far as rental properties. What's your net income after expenses and what's your cap rate to create the value, right? So what's the basic premise of that? You increase cash flow, increase value. Very simple formula, right? You can increase the cash flow on the properties, so you're gonna be able to increase the value of the property, and then you might be able to sell it or keep it or refinance it, pull the money out and go buy another one. Gives you a lot of options, right? So when you're looking at your business plan, you want to know if you want to buy or hold. Is it a long-term hold, or are you going to be buying it with a hold with a potential for development? So I'm buying the small facility, it's got 5 extra acres, 10 extra acres that we can develop those extra acres and add value that way. Develop or value add, all right? Some of the things you want to do as far as the value add that we were talking about earlier, things that you want to look at is who are third-party management companies. Are they doing the management themselves, or are you going to do it themselves, right? What's the key one is going to be raising rents to market levels, right? Raising rents on legacy tenants. Oh, these guys have been here for 10 years. I don't want to raise the rates. I'm afraid they'll leave. Well, maybe you want them to leave. Right? Increasing income, you can do it by increasing what tenant insurance. You know, on a $10 payment per month that they add, you get about 70% out, $7 out of it. Now, they may only charge $5, but you're still getting 70% of that money that goes to you. And that's extra money. That's just a little bit of extra money that's very easy, because all you do is add it, right? And then maybe what you're looking to do is do the improvement of market line non-presence, you know, marketing, stuff like that. Better security, what kind of CapEx are you gonna be doing, all right? The issues that you really want to look at are going to be these ones, you know, comparing your rates to the market rates. What's your rate that you're currently charging compared to what the market should be bearing, right? Is it 44 cents, which is the rest of the property, versus $1.10? Obviously, even if you doubled it, if it went up to 88 cents, you can still make good money. You're going to look at the management issues, maintenance issues, how much deferred maintenance. Typically, when you get into these properties, you're going to see that there are a lot of maintenance issues because they didn't take care of the roofs. When was the last time the roofs were replaced? You know, did they seal them? You know, did they let, you know, rats come in and stuff like that? Did they let food? Market issues, that's analyzing the market. Who's the market that you're buying from and who's there? Who are you ready to? All right. Marketing issues are your marketing. That's, you know, you're outbound and attract customers. What are you doing? Is that deficient? No website. Go ahead, sir.
Do you ever run into like market saturation issues?
Hmm?
I mean, like
That's
there's
per
a
capita.
group and like everyone's like, oh, self-storage is a great business to be in. And it seems like they're overbuilding in areas.
Depends. Some areas, yes. That's why you want to look at some of the major. My criteria is I don't want to compete against the big boys, so I don't go after the major MSAs. I go after secondary, tertiary markets.
And what kind of saturation rate do you decide that it's too much?
The per capita, that was back on the per capita rate, which is square footage. 4 to 7. 4 to 7 is underserved. Because our average right now nationally is 7 square feet, right? 7 to about 11, 12 is pretty decent. There may be some opportunities. If it's 11 and above, I've seen them as high as 17 in some areas like Florida. Who does the Florida deals? You guys do? Yeah, Florida, right? There are some areas there that they actually have 17 square feet per person. But they're still leased up only because of the fact that they're nicer facilities and they are not huge. They're renting smaller spaces. So it's a 5x5, 5x8, things like that, really small, dinky things. So they're getting a lot better as far as that. Because somebody has a little, you ever been one of those little Miami condos on the beach for their 400 square feet? Like 400 square feet, they got like I can't remember what they call them, but they, it's got a kitchenette and a little half a refrigerator, and it's basically on a, hotel room. So people like that need stuff like that. So yes, you want to do that and analyze it. No, that's part of the knowing the market is what's the point where it's too much? Because if it's too much, then you're gonna have to figure out, because if some of the big boys come in and put somebody, they can actually run you out of business. Because they can suck up the whole market. So, yes, that's critical.
And you're saying anything below 7?
11 to 15, you're gonna know, you wanna really know your market, you wanna really know. Below 11, 10 or 11, there's probably opportunities. And there's, if it's only like 3 to 5, then there's definitely opportunities there. Because the nation is 7. Everybody in the United States needs 7 square feet of storage space. Right? All right, auxiliary income, cell towers, billboards, all the other kind of stuff. No, so if that's an opportunity, so this one, okay. Cost improvements, what is it gonna cost? Right, what is it gonna really cost to do it, what needs to be done, how much is it gonna cost? Is it gonna be very expensive if you gotta replace all the rails? So it's gonna be, is it gonna be a gate? Who knows what a gate costs? Anybody? 15? Who said 15? Yeah, about 15, 20, depending on where it's at. Have it installed and everything like that. So roofs, fencing, all that stuff. You just want to really kind of dig into it. All right, here's the fun. Now we're gonna get into the numbers. I know, I'm a lender. Oh my God. Everybody can hold their head down and go to sleep, right? All right, so. Number of units, that's the sizes, square feet, and then what you want to do. So this is important because it breaks it out to the values of what it's going to be. You want to look at this because you want to see what the percentages are of each of the units. So is it high, low, medium, and is that enough for the demand? So 10 by 10s is only about 20% of the market. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But we have 10 by 15s that are 23%. I mean, a quarter of the facility is 10 by 15. Is that out of whack? Maybe. Depends, right? They're not climate controlled. That's outside units. Are they climate controlled? You don't always have to make them climate or non-climate. It all depends on who you're leasing to and what the people are storing. Are they storing computers? Are they storing, kitchen stuff, right? All right. So occupied units, right? 70 units, times $29, 2030, right? For the value of the gross rent on the collected down to here, and then that's annualized. Right? That's the current one that we were looking at when we went and took a look at the property. That's what he was charging. So that's about what he was doing. Now, some of these numbers, he was running high occupancy, but he was running high occupancy because these rates are so low. Right? So that's the biggest trick question. So what we do is we take it all the way out to here. It's about $183,000 annually. Right? That's the annualized numbers, right? Once again, expenses come out. So 183,000. Now it's 38% is the expenses. That's a ratio. We're just doing it straight off the thing because we estimate it's usually about 34 and 35%. That's just a rough number, and it's just a ratio that we're doing, right? So we take 38% of the 183,000 to come up with that. He's got an estimated net income of about 113,000. 113,000. What's the value? Cap rate, right? Divide the cap rate by 6%. So 38, 169, 6%. Valued about $1.8 million, right? That's what it's really worth if a lender was gonna loan on it, if a major institutional investor was gonna come in, they're gonna look at the historical data and they're gonna go, you guys aren't making any money and it's only worth about $1.8 million. Yes, sir.
Now these owners that you're describing don't keep very good books.
80-year-old, well, there was one
So
out in, where was it, Winnemucca? I can't remember if it was Winnemucca or Fallon. They were in their 80s and 90s. They had this little thing and they had a pegboard with all the units up there. And if it had a red flag, it was leased. That was and she did old fashioned accounting. And the records she gave us, literally, the records were like. So we paid him a bookkeeper, we sent it over to a bookkeeper, paid a bookkeeper to do the books for it for a year, just to see where they were at. So
you'll wait to get better data, or do you ever?
I will, if they will give me their bank statements, I'll send it over to a bookkeeper and have them do the books for it, so that I can understand where they're at. I've done that, I paid for it, because of the fact that at that point in time, it's worth it. And when you're dealing with somebody like that, a lot of times they're gonna be a little bit older, they're managing, they're not gonna necessarily want the higher price out of the property. They're gonna go, well, if I can get this out of it, that's where the value add comes.
What if
Because-
that is cash? It's not even on a bank statement.
You can't pay for that. All the time. Oh. Front pocket accounting, yeah, that happens all the time. Right? So you can't, I can't pay for that because it's not trackable. So, and a lender is not gonna lend on it because it's not trackable and it's not declared on the taxes. They're gonna want taxes for the last 3 years. They're gonna take a look at it and they're gonna go, okay, we can loan up to this amount. Right? Or not. Right? So that's basically what the value is, $1.8 million, right? This was actual numbers from that we pulled from his taxes. Right? So income added a little bit of extra. He was making about $100,000 a year. He was happy with that. This is an older retired guy running it by himself. He's, you know, he doesn't really have any debt on the building, so you know that was all going to his pocket. So, and he doesn't have any really overhead because his houses are all paid for where he lives. So he was okay with it. He was, you know, I'm doing okay. I don't want to. He doesn't want he doesn't want to have to deal with the issues of having to lease it out. He doesn't want to have to deal with the issues of kicking people out. He doesn't want to have to deal with the issues of sending out letters to go, hey, guess what? Congratulations. We've got a rate increase that's coming for you. Right? So that's about what he was making on it. So that even with the value there, right? What's the value of the property? That income divided by, we're using 6% cap rate. That's kind of a medium. If I was going to do value add, I want to get like 7 or 8. You know, because we want to add the value, because if we can get 7 or 8 and there's value add, we can get it 9 or 10. I can get it 9 or 10, I guarantee it. I don't know if I should say that, right? I can't guarantee. Right? So 101,000 divided by 6%, $1.6 million. Just based on our analysis, if we were netting out 113,000 at 6%, it's $1.8 million. Is it worth your time to go through all those records and paperwork and all that stuff for $200,000? Right? Well, it takes a while and it takes a little bit of work, right? So. Once again, the competition, know what your competition is, what their rates are, so that you can send out letters and say, congratulations, we're the new owners. Guess what? Your rates are going up. You don't like it, move out. But you're gonna lose a percentage of people when you do that. Anytime you do that.
What was the purchase price?
On this one, we bought it for 2.4. 2.45. Because he actually had a little bit of a knowledge about what was going on and he knew what the upside was. So he was not, it was difficult, but I'm gonna show you why we paid 2.4. You'll see why here in a little bit. You know, but great question. What's your competition? What are they charging? How much are they making and what you can have? Yes, sir.
Is this really a typical, is there that
No.
much spread between?
Sometimes. You gotta look for it. So, is there that much spread? Who does the fix and flips here? Right? You know, you make 20 or 30,000 minimally sometimes, typically, depending on what it is. You know, is there always that much spread in those things? Depends, right? It depends on if you open up the wall and suddenly, you know, oh, there's no permits for that extra room. Right? That's not permitted. Yes.
So you're talking about raising rates, do you have like a timeline where you expect your occupancy to go down and
Yes.
it's gonna come back up again?
Yes. Typically what we found, we've done it a couple of different ways. What we do is we rip the batteries off. The one that, this one right here, letters are actually going out next week on it. The rates are gonna be going up on July 1st to market rates. We estimate we're gonna lose usually anywhere from about 20 to 30% of the people. But you know, if you do the analysis right, with the rates, and even if you lose the 20%, you can still end up sometimes making more money. At once, but the whole idea is we're gonna take this thing and we're gonna get it stabilized. Once we get it stabilized, then it's gonna be a really good cash machine.
So I'm gathering that you own these all over the US. Do you?
I look for, when I first started doing this, I looked for cash flow. I did not care about, I was not concerned with location exclusive of the fact of, you know, I wanted a direct flight from Reno, but there's not that many direct flights from Reno's with opportunities.
So what about?
So we were looking primarily at cash flow. But now as we've bought and got a number of facilities, we've narrowed our focus. And
About contractors. You have your own contractors, do you hire one?
we hire different locations, everyone differently. So, but
Is this your primary business now?
I have a day job where I'm a lender. I do SBA loans. And we did this one with an SBA loan, so you can actually buy facilities with SBA loans. With a 15% down. And you can do it on projections, not historical.
But you're doing like residential or commercial?
No, I do commercial
Right.
stuff.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I don't do residential. Yeah, no, I don't do any random residential stuff. But during the day, my day job to pay the bills is, but at some point here, probably in the next year or two, I'll be doing this full time. But, you know, I went through the divorce, gave all the money away, started again, you know, had to rebuild and then rebuild it. And this was always the second part of the plan. I bought a bunch of single family residences that were rented. Once the value went up, I take the values I'm rolling into this. So this is the second part of the game plan. So. Rates. What's the best business plan again? Make money. Raising rates from 44 cents a square foot to $1.10. Right? So. This is the units. Now, this is based on 100% occupancy. This is raising them up to about market rates, right? So. Monthly gross scheduled income, annualized, right? And it goes from 181,000 to almost $500,000. Right? $500,000 in it. That's just by raising the rates. That's not doing any management issues. That's just by basically raising rates and letting some of the people leave. Now, granted, this is based upon 100% occupancy. We figure in the first couple of months, we're gonna probably lose about 30% of the 20 to 30% is usually. And then it takes some seasonality for a couple of months to get it back up. But the thing is, with this particular market on this particular one, there's a major need. There's a tremendous amount of demand and there's not sufficient enough facilities out there to be able to do it. So once again, what's the value? What's the business plan? Make money, right? All right, so 36,000, 436,000. Once again, this is 38%. So we bumped up from 34 to 38 because of the fact that we've got CapEx we're gonna know we're gonna have to do. We've got some people that we're adding. We're gonna have to add management fees onto the property, stuff like that. So with that, 271,000 at 6%, the value is 4.5 million. Better win?
Yeah, 2.4 wasn't that bad.
So is 2.4 a fair price? Yeah, maybe. Yes, sir.
What do you like everything going on with like markets and everything, interest rates, is it? You guys?
Yes.
a lot, or-
Well, the cost of capital is gonna be a lot higher. Because of the fact that we borrowed some of the money to buy this property. So when we bought it, we're borrowing funds and our cost of capital for debt has gone up from, you know, literally that was in the 5 and 6s, now it's up into the 8s and 9s. So yes, that's gonna be something that we have to deal with. You know, but we still felt this was strong enough to be able to do that. But so what happens, you get the inverse relationship. When your cost goes up, your interest rates and the cost of capital goes up, the value goes down. Where we're at right now with the market is you got people who are trying to sell their properties from last year because they think the value's here, right? And you're saying the value's here, right? So there's this spread right there. There's discrepancy between the two. And that's where the conversations are. That's why people aren't necessarily finding deals. I've seen the band get closer, but we'll have to see. Sir,
Yeah, with that question about interest rates, is this a space where you can get, private? money
Yes.
as well, it's syndication. but
yes, we've syndicated too. We've done syndications too. There's a lot of extra costs for syndicating. Because you gotta put all the paperwork and all the legal paperwork together, so there's a lot of extra costs. So that's why you have to have a strong enough deal that that it makes sense to do it. Because, just put some of the paperwork is about $15,000-$20,000 for the syndication. So, so you don't necessarily, but one of the things is, now we've done this before, get them to do seller financing. Hey, you want to get rid of it? I'll take on the management issues. Will you finance it for us? Short-term loan, interest only. Yeah, I get rid of the property. I don't have to deal with it no more. You send me a check, okay? But I mean, those deals are out there, but they're, you gotta go look for them. You're not gonna call up a commercial broker and go, hey, can you give me this deal? They're gonna go, no, that's, you gotta call the owners. Right, I got an assistant that's making phone calls, really tonight. All right, so. Values go, up, you drop the interest rate, your cap rate goes down, what happens? Value goes up. Yeah, so in a 5.5%, all the same factors fail turning in. But it's at a 5.5 cap, so if we get this thing cleaned up enough, we can sell it to an institutional investor, or we get it where it's financeable on banks and stuff. And the value. Now the cap rate is going to be 5.5. Now the value is 4.9. Right. So, right. So net operating income, current low value. When it do the increases, right? We're going to be managing it ourselves. Give very low on cost expenses. So we did that. Vacancy is low due to market rate. So we're going to fix that by raising rates. I'll take some vacancy over higher rates any day. Value is 4.5. Value between fours, a cap rate of 6, cap rate of 5.5. You got an extra $400,000 in profit, right? We'll talk about this one real quick. What's the exit? Keep it selling. Because a cash cow, keep it forever, right? Pass it on to my kids, let them get it. I inherited a higher tax base. Right? Or sell it at a profit and take it and roll it hopefully into something better or just as good. Right? That's why, so you want to basically watch the market for the rates and stuff like that. What do you want to, what's your average cap rates? Who is going to be your buyer on the property? Who are you going to sell it to? You're going to sell it to somebody like me where I'm going to beat you up on the conversation. You're going to sell it to somebody like you who's going to, I really need value add. Well, it's already set up and cleaned up. So I'm going to sell it to an investor who like, okay, I've got the money. I just want to buy something where I can put the money for a little while and I'll take a lower rate return. Right? So you want to look at that position for institutional cash buyers. Yeah. And it's all set up for things. So who wants to buy some self-storage units or have some for sale? Yes, sir.
So you talked about buying your unit and then ripping that off to replenish that 20-30% people that leave. Do you do marketing campaigns or do you just kind of
we institute marketing campaigns, but not necessarily a marketing campaign where we're sending out flyers. This particular facility did, it's got a website, but it's not a good one. We start doing advertising. That's why we increased the rates, the expense rate from 34 cents to 38. Because we're going to do that. We're going to do some, Facebook advertising. We'll do some social media advertising. We're going to set up we're going to change up the webpage so that they can actually rent from the webpage as opposed to, it's just a brochure, online brochure, stuff like that.
But I'd also assume that the amount of people that do stay with raised rents could bring drastic impacts on your loss of income.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and a lot of them, they're already set up on auto pay. So you send them a notice and most people are going to go, okay.
Where are they gonna move?
I've seen that before, where they send out a notice, hey, we're gonna raise your rates by this much. Oh, I'm gonna move out. I don't like you anymore. They go out into the market and go, holy moly, there's Because even the rates that we're looking at doing it, it's still below market. You know, guy calls up another one and says, how much is your 10x10? I'm only paying $50. Well, ours is 120. Oh. You know,
I can handle non-payment.
oh, the lead sales. Now Tennessee's a lot easier than Nevada. Nevada's a little bit more challenging. 5-day lockout. They haven't paid or hasn't processed, we can put a lock on the door and we can start the lien process and sell it. We can have it sold within 22 days if we do the paperwork right and follow along. But a lot of times you have a phone calling system. Hey, you know, maybe your debit card, you lost it or changed it or whatever. Can we get it taken care of and to make it up? So.
You have this problem, a big problem with that.
No. Not necessarily. No, any business that you have, that you're gonna have management issues, right? Cost of doing business. Any business, name a business that you don't. You know, and if you can find one, call me up and we'll go invest in it together. Right? That great. Right? Exactly. So, all right. Any other questions? Sir?
So Tennessee, so is it? Tennessee is more humid environment,
Yes.
so T11, it tends to like decompose more quickly, right? So are you looking for like brick, cinder block construction?
I prefer cinder block construction myself personally, but this one was not. It's sheet metal and some other stuff. So I mean, it's still decent. It's actually pretty decent for construction on this one. I've seen some that are. Yeah, they're rather cheap. But yeah, my personal preference is cinder block, and if we're gonna add new stuff, we're gonna probably add cinder block. So on some of the newer buildings, because he has newer ones, they've been built over time. Some of the newer ones are actually better.
And what
And
about,
nowadays, with some of them nowadays, you can go to these places, they have these ones where you grade the land, they'll bring it in and drop it off and it's ready to go.
I have another question, so like shipping containers,
Yes,
like just put shipping containers, I mean, what's your thought?
can you?
I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Do I like it? No, I'm not a fan of it. I think, can you do it? Yes, absolutely.
No, I've
And I've seen people where they cut them up
Okay.
and weld walls and stuff like that. I'm not necessarily a fan of it. Because of the fact that it limits some of your space. If you have the right, area to do it, yes. But I don't think they look good. Personally, that's, I like to have a little bit nicer facility, a little nicer. Because people that are willing to pay the extra money will pay for that looking nice and security. Most people are, it's about security. So we're putting up cameras. So, all right. Any other questions real quick? No? At that, I'd like to hand it right back over to Denver.